Welcome to Big Questions. This is Cal Fussman, an old school guy showing you where the world is headed. Imagine this. Imagine that you and a coworker are asked to step in front of a crowd at a conference. One of the organizers pulls out a long rod of carbon steel. It's called rebar, short for reinforcement bar. It's used in concrete to support buildings, almost half an inch thick. You're asked to put one end of the stainless steel bar on the hollow of your throat, right here. Your volunteer partner is asked to put the other end of the bar at the hollow of their throat. You're standing there looking at each other as the crowd gathers round. It's there to cheer as motivation for you to walk toward each other without flinching. No trick to this. As terrifying as it might look, the worst thing you can do is hesitate. That actually makes it dangerous. But if the force is evenly distributed and you and your partner walk confidently toward each other without flinching, the carbon steel bends. The crowd erupts, and you have a piece of artwork that shows that your body can do things your mind might not believe. The people doing the bending and the people watching it happen never forget it. It's proof that humans can be stronger than steel. To me, it's proof that humans can overcome fears and access a new sense of power in the time of AI. My guest today is a unique expert in human resources. Courtney Harrison is an architect of reframing the way you see yourself. She's proved to sales teams at American Express that they can bend rebar and snap arrows using the force coming through the hollows of their necks. She's placed executives in Olympic bobsleds where they went 90 miles an hour while the gravitational force made them feel like they had 4 times their body weight. No matter who you are or what you do, Courtney Harrison can probably figure out a way to help you understand change. That's a highly valuable quality in a time that provokes fear. Courtney and her longtime colleague, Alicia Mandel, are the principals of Media's Advisory Group. Organizations call upon them when they want to unravel their situation and be uplifted. Listen to Courtney talk about the time when she and Alicia were working to revitalize the U.S. Olympic Committee when it was in debt, without much of a plan, churning through CEOs while the U.S. Olympic team was falling behind in medal count before 2008. Nearly every other Olympic team around the world is financed by their government. The USA team doesn't get any tax dollars. It's run like a business through corporate sponsorships and broadcast rights. Courtney helped create what came to be called Olympic University to get companies to support the athletes in 45 different sports. She lured executives in by creating activities that had them moving with the athletes. Organizations reached out to her when they wanted to learn something about themselves. Listening to Courtney tell this story about understanding change.
YPO, do you know YPO, Young Presidents Organization?
Yes.
It's been around like forever.
Yes.
And so, over my years with execs I work with, be so excited to be like, getting in the young president, because I think you had to be under 40 or whatever. And then when they turned like 41, 42, they were like, what's next? I need another YPO for the next thing. So anyway, Alicia and I were at the Olympics and we got a call from YPO and they said, hey, we were wondering if you can help. It was for a New York part of the association. It was New York based. And they were like, do you have anything fun we could do with you? We have this thing every year where we take, whatever, I think it was like 20, 25 people, and they go do something cool. And YPO was sort of cocky the way they were talking to me. They're like, we have a lot of money and we are able to, because it's YPO and because it's like CEOs and stuff, they were like, we can do just about anything we want. And I was like, okay, what are you looking for from me? Because they called me first. I'm like, what are you looking for me? And they were like, well, last year we were on a battleship in the middle of, man, planes are flying. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, what do you, I'm like Colorado Springs it used to be the Army barracks in the 1970s. So like, it's like not fancy. What do you want? Like, how can I help you? And they're like, well, they need to learn something. This is the learning thing. And I said, okay, I can tell you, and Alicia and I had just been starting to build for our own people, like our own leaders and stuff. It was called Olympic University, build it from scratch. And then if we built it, it could train our own people. Then we could go offer it to, that's how we did the Lake Placid, go get the Accentures and the MXs and the Deloitte. So that's where we were headed anyway. So I said, well, we built something called Olympic University. And they're like, okay, but like, what's cool and different about it? Like, I have no idea it's cool and different. I mean, but they're Olympians training to go to whatever was next. It was either London or Vancouver. And I said, how about this? I said, I don't ever design anything without asking, what are you trying to teach? I mean, I could go throw a bunch of crap at you and you could maybe like it because they're going to be famous someday. But what are you trying to do? Don't they have a goal? Don't they need to learn something? And they were like, they mentioned something about the time about change. And said, well, they need to get better. They got to lead these teams, and they're constantly changing in technology. And I said, okay, that, Alicia and I are kind of our background. We're good at that. So long story short, we're like, are you open to dates? Because like not everyone's here all the time. Sometimes Phelps is here and then he's gone. But I mean, everyone trains here because of altitude for the most part. So anyway, we long story short to this, the women's volleyball team. So this is going to Beijing, by the way. It's about a year before. Is in Colorado Springs a lot, training constantly. So they're all like ex-Stanford, Penn State women, whatever, and they're all like 7'5". So we were talking to the coaches there because that's what we'd have to go do to design things. We have to go to the coach and be like, hey, we have this team. And then, by the way, they would pay us a good amount of money, and then I could give them to sports that had no money. That was always our goal. Like rob from the rich and give it to the poor sports. And so anyway, the guy was like, okay, well, what do we want to do with them? So Alicia and I sat down and we talked about it. We were cracking ourselves up at the time, thinking we're never going to do it. And then we did. We were like, okay, they want it to be about change. Let's see what we can do to kind of mirror that. And Alicia and I worked in corporate America our whole life. That's the only time we've been in sports. Right? So we did this thing where we were like, okay, and they're Californians too. And we said, hey, do any of them play volleyball on the beach or whatever? And they were like, oh, half of them do. They do it like every week. And that's who they are. And I'm like, awesome. We're going to have them come. And we didn't tell them the whole part. We only told them the first half. At least the guy who said, sure, sign me up. Here's your money. Is where they're going to pay the women's U.S. volleyball team going to Beijing. And they were like, cool. And I was like, yeah, they're good. But yeah, that'll be cool. And so what we did was, that was the first half. By the way, they were getting killed. Somebody's glasses broke because one of the women did something and broke their glasses. We had to get tape. It was like kind of funny to watch. They weren't winning very well as much as they were. They're like, we'll do another round. It was all males, by the way. So then we brought in the Paralympic volleyball team, and they're people with no legs who can't walk. And we didn't say a word. We just said, go take your break. We're going to keep playing volleyball and take a break, have some water. And the women's team walked out and we didn't say a word. And the Paralympic team with people who couldn't stand and had no legs walked in quietly, sat in the same spot because it's the same sport. It's the same rules, same sport, except you got no legs. And then they turned around. I was like, they were looking and it was quiet for a minute. And so, we're just calm as bear. I think Alicia was facilitating this part. She was so good. So she was just like, okay, the women's team had to go. They had a lot of fun with you. That was great. And this is a team that will also be going to Beijing. This is our Paralympic volleyball team. So you ready? Let's go. And then whatever, we'd start the thing. And they were like, wait. So they stop and they're like, well, wait a minute. Like, how does this work? And we're like, it's volleyball. Because we're trying to be like CEOs, right? When everyone's like, this is different. No, it's not. Same sport, same rules. And so they just sat totally quietly. And they're like, do we also sit there? Like, they had to go figure out through change. We were just trying to mimic an environment of, you could do this to your people all the time. You don't tell them if there's new rules. You don't tell them what you have to do. You're like, oh my God, they're such a pain. Like, I put the PowerPoints up and they're not doing it. So that's how we were pretending. And so anyway, they end up, and you do have to sit down to play. So we were like, well, what are they doing? Because we're like, that's what a CEO would be like, look over there. And so then they sat down. They couldn't play at all. That team was so good, our team, the U.S. team. And they couldn't get a ball. And they were like, and all we did was like created some change, but overall, same sport, same rules, and then sit down. And look how you can't do that, right? You could when you're like, oh, I do it all the time and I do it in California. And I'm like, oh, great. And they were totally lost. And it was just we just had fun because it was fun to watch them. But afterwards, we do debriefs with them and stuff. And they were like, that was the weirdest, craziest thing I've ever. We're like, yeah, it's no being on a battleship, planes flying over you. But we're like, you guys said you wanted to learn more about how to lead and how to do change and stuff. And we were like, we changed one thing about a thing and you guys were completely lost. So put your empathy hat on when you go back to work and think about sometimes, you change one aspect of something and you don't spend time, you don't communicate, you don't go role model it or show how to do it, but you get really frustrated with your people. So anyway, it ended up being such a great thing. We got the nicest note back and a huge donation from YPO after that, by the way, that said, thank you so much for like not treating us like we were like super special because we were like, hey, you're normal like everybody else. And we had Fortune 500 companies coming in and going to our training too. So we weren't like mesmerized by anybody's background, but they said, thank you so much. That was really like mind boggling for us to have to sit back and think about how we show up at work, and then gave us the donation. So it just made me think, because I thought you'd appreciate the story, because it was the greatest thing to watch when they turned around and people were just on the ground. I couldn't stand up, but they were like, what do you do? Like, I don't know, go figure it out.
This episode is for everyone who is uncertain about where AI has taken us and perhaps feeling a little exhausted by it. We probably never confronted such a radical demand for change while simultaneously feeling an erosion of trust. Employees may not trust leadership to be straight with them about what's coming. Leadership may not trust that the employees are using AI or using it well. Think of scenarios like this. What happens when AI produces an undesired outcome? Who takes the responsibility? The person who recommended the AI? The manager in charge? The worker who prompted it? Through Media's advisory group, Courtney coaches executives, advises executive teams, and leads workshops where I first observed her in action. She's interacting with a lot of people in the workforce, and I thought you'd like to hear her point of view of how she sees it on the front lines. Thanks to my sponsor, Moments, for bringing it to you. At the end of the episode, you'll hear a Moments story about an employee who was burning the candle at both ends and got rewarded for her work by her company with a trip of a lifetime. Now, that's the way to treat people. But before we get to that story, let's go to Courtney and find out what she could tell us about the speed of the AI transformation and how she learned about speed from a father who raced cars and boats. Is there any equation in your head? Is there any way that you could equal what you were seeing while your dad was zooming around a racetrack in a Ferrari with the way people might be looking at how fast AI is moving, and the same way maybe people in attendance would be a little frightened as the cars went around the curves? They are frightened now of how fast AI is moving, how little control they seem to feel. Am I just making this up, or is there any correlation?
I definitely think there's a correlation in the sense of I haven't, as I've been thinking about AI for the last at least year, if not a little bit more, I always couldn't think about it without thinking about change. It's where I spent most of my career, my passion, no matter what I was doing, was that people really aren't naturally wired for change. The brain isn't wired for it. They're wired for survival. So if I was trying to do back and forth between like racing cars and boats and stuff, you got to move fast, but you're not doing it because you care too much about survival, or you probably wouldn't be in that industry, right? And so when I look at it now and I think about AI, I just have been thinking the world's just going to get faster and faster due to technology. We knew a version of this was coming for a really long period of time. It was, how do you get humans that aren't wired naturally to move and move quickly to be able to be ready for what's happening? So I did grow up in a world of a lot of technology changes, right? If you go back to the dot-com bubble and the internet, I mean, I sound 100 years old, but like before internet and after internet and all that kind of stuff, everyone kept saying the jobs will go away and this will change and blah, blah, blah. And it kept going on, but it kept going faster and faster and faster. This is really the first time we've ever seen it surpass human ability, human intelligence. So it's different. But what I say to people all the time, and it's really hit me as I've been thinking about it, whether you've been asking me questions or a recent blog that I just wrote about, I really think it isn't as much about the velocity of technology. It is what it is, and we need to accept it, and it's not going to slow down. It's really about our institutional readiness and the roles that humans play in being part of that entire network between human and humanoids. How are we going to work together? How are we going to do it? I think it's that. And so, is AI moving too fast? I feel like it's a bit of a cop-out, that makes it a pre-existing condition. The fact that I think it's more the fact that organizational design, leadership models off and on for all the years I was in the HR world and HR frameworks, we're stuck in the late, and this is line leaders as well, we're stuck in the late 20th century. And AI didn't create that gap. It's just getting really exposed right now with brutal efficiency being at the forefront. So I think AI is just the thing that's making us think differently and move faster. And I still think humans will never be able to keep up as fast as ideally they could, but we're going to have to find a way that it all works together.
You became famous in HR when there was a piece in the Harvard Business Review that basically was saying, blow up HR.
Yeah.
How did you come out of that as the poster child to blow things up?
I mean, I wouldn't say I was a poster child. I didn't write it, and I was one person who was covered in it. I give credit to the people who wrote it and was pulling all the pieces together. I think it was more because I was so vocal for so long, and it sounds like I was joking around, but I really wasn't. I spent so much of my career trying not to get fired because it was in HR. I majored in it. I had multiple degrees in it, but I complained about it more than anyone, and not because I didn't think it was so important. I still think it's so important. I just felt like it had to let go of its 1970s. It started in the 70s as a compliance function, and it needed to be a compliance function then, but it didn't need to be a compliance function in the 90s or 2000s or whatever. It needed to be about change and innovation and people, and it just was still like, we're going to collect your forms. And if you don't, do a year-end review by this date, it was just very, guardrail-y and not super fun, I guess I would say. So I spent my whole life trying to go find good line leaders. Honestly, I spent a lot of my life staying away from HR as much as I could. And then go to good line leaders who would give me money and give me direct reports from the line or from the money they would usually use of a line person. They would give them over to me and Alicia. So that's what all I wanted to do. And I was trying not to get caught, or I thought I'd get fired. And I got in trouble a couple of times, Alicia and I did, but everything was going so well, they couldn't really fire us. So it was sort of that back and forth thing more than anything. So by the time, I think 10 years before the HBR article came out, I think it was literally 10 years to the month, Fast Company, which was my favorite magazine when I was in grad school, was always doing cool things. It was like, hey, let's be more fun in the workplace. It's so boring. Let's make it more fun. And they had a cover page of, I think it was more like, it looked like Puppets or Raggedy Ann character kind of thing. I have it somewhere still, was holding a person upside down. It's holding it by the feet upside down, miserable with a red face. And it was something about, when is HR going to go away? That was 10 years earlier. And so that's why every time I'd see that, I'd be like, so we're not the only, at least I'd be like, we're not the only crazy people. And we had just gone to a company called Assurian, which was 400 people at the time, a startup. It's now got 20,000 people and it's global, but Alicia came with me again. And then we would just go into these things and we would start doing cool, fun, different things. And it just, people enjoyed doing it. And then I don't know what ultimately helped them be successful or made them successful. But back to your point about going back to the bobsledding thing, what people would say is, oh my God, this is so much better than every meeting we ever have or go to. We're like, really? Because you usually sit in a ballroom and you look at the sides.
In this case, people are coming to appreciate the speed. Now, with AI emerging, are there people who are appreciating the speed, or are
I'm not
most people
sure.
frightened by it?
I'm not sure speed's the right word for that. Yes, I think you started talking about. I hadn't thought about speed was built into a lot of what Alicia and I did. It's the fear. If I was to pick the one word, it's fear. And the thing I've said for a long time, I don't know what made me start saying, and I still think it's as true as anything, is curiosity is stronger than fear. When you think about how people are wired and why we're wired for survival and not wired for change, what can get people to start moving is curiosity. What doesn't get them moving is fear, whether it's the words like, you're going to lose your job. And if you don't get AI and you're not, it's all like fear of job, fear of this. If you don't do that, that is not how you get people to move. Get them to be curious. And so it's a good question to be asking, but I'll go back to the bobsled thing. In the end, was it 90 miles an hour and 4Gs? Yeah. But they were more scared than anything. I don't even think they were, other than like, I'm going that fast. Yes, you are. And at least with the one, the luge one, I think it was luge, whatever's on your stomach, we couldn't go from the top because you literally could die. We went from 35 feet down because you're by yourself. You're not with the team. Like in bobsled, you're with your team and they got your back. When you're there, you're by yourself and you're going 35 miles an hour and you're going 8 miles up the wall. And so that was just fear. So I think in the end, and I look at AI today, in the end, one of the quotes I use all the time in teaching change, it really isn't about the change or what's at the end point. It's getting from where you are to where you need to go. That's how we're wired, is to hold on to where we are and be safe and be good at what we do. Not like, what if I fail? Or what if I fall off? Or what if I suck? Or what if I majored in something that's happening right now? 20 years ago, that's irrelevant. It's fear-based. And so the brain is wired when it has fear to go this way, to suck in and stay still and hope nobody notices you. And Alicia and I were so passionate. No. It's going to change whether you like it or not. Go be in front or go be in it or go with a bobsledding team that's going to win the gold. You can do this. So I think in the end, we were teaching how to overcome fear and reframe. And again, a lot of it was about sales goals. It was like every year sales would say, oh my God, there's no way we can hit this year. And we were like, you said that last year. And they're like, well, like the next, did it again. And I'm like, they're going to keep doing it to you. So you might as well just accept it. What do you need to go do to be like, I can do this?
So
I don't think it was
when I'm listening to you, I'm hearing that humans can be conditioned or reframed to believe that they can do it, and then they do it.
They can do a lot more than they think they can. They can do a lot more than they think they can do. So we sort of we create the environment to do it. We don't force them. Then they watch the brave ones, the early adopters go first. Then the next brave ones do it. And then the ones at the end, if we run it well and it's a couple of days, those last one or two are like, I'm going to do it. And we're like, all right, we're with you. And it was that thing to believe you could take anyone on the team with you. And so, yeah, we taught them you could do a lot that you don't think you could do by creating the environment to allow them to do it and celebrating them when they did. That was it.
Okay, now you're going around and you're listening to people, you're advising people, companies, in how they're going to navigate bringing people and AI together. And are you seeing the fears all over the place? Are you wanting to reach for some rebar and arrows and say, don't worry, I got you covered here? How is your experience giving seminars, talking to CEOs, listening to problems? How do you come home every night thinking, is this the same old thing? We need arrows and rebars to get people to just step forward.
It's funny. Alicia and I still talk about it a lot. We don't get to do what we got known for and what we did for so long that was great for the companies that we work for. It's just a different world, but it's not because of AI. I guess if I had to summarize what she and I say is companies are just run so differently now. I felt like there used to be more freedom. And I think it has something to do with and again, we're mostly in startup or middle market and they're owned by private equity firms, and nothing against them, but they've got a deadline and a date and they want to see numbers. And it's the same stuff that we used to fight to say, yeah, that's important. But if you really want to hit your number, we got to let people kind of out. We were able to do it a lot easier back then. So when she and I talk about now where people are, I'd still say It's a version of fear. Some will smile and say they're fine, but we can tell when they're not. It might be a lighter version of fear. I think a lot of it has to do, because I coach a lot of people and more senior people, age has something to do with it. I mean, there's people that are sort of like, that'll be honest with me and like, oh, remember when people used to retire when we were like 35 and we're like, I can't wait till I'm 5 years from retirement. I'd say, why? And they're like, I'm just going to float on out, be like a mentor. Like it was like, I'm on my way out. And now, like, I'll talk to them like, I either need to get out now or I gotta suck it up and probably do the hardest work of my life. And I'm like, yep, in or out. There is nothing in between right now. And so it's interesting for that age range. And then there's like the decade down that's like, I can't even get out. I'm too young to get out. I can't get to the thing. Like, and what I majored in, it doesn't matter. I literally have to pretend I'm 20 again, reframe. I have to pretend I'm 20 again and like go learn something new or go do something else. And org charts are finally starting to disappear, which is my favorite thing because it can't be run by ego, top-down hierarchy, and then you hope it gets to the bottom. Everything in AI, no one's changed in the last year saying it, it's going to be more going horizontal. And it doesn't matter how long you've worked or what you've done. You might be in charge of something at age 25 instead of at age 55 when I paid my dues for 3 years and my what I majored in didn't matter. So there's versions of fear without a doubt. And so when Alicia and I talk about it, we're like, imagine what we could do what we used to do. And she and I both think it's probably never been more important to do what we used to do. Because sitting there and staring at something you can't control and knowing we're wired to like try not to move and hope nobody notices as opposed to put yourself up there, you got to create environments to do it. And just sending people to courses and classes on like prompting or on, all the stuff that's important to know AI, or at least to be able to play in the game of AI. It's not being the way Alicia and I learned how to teach adult learning. It's just, we don't have that kind of money and we don't have money for offsites. And if we do, we're going to the crap down the street ballroom and looking at PowerPoint slides still. So it's not for lack of trying. We try when we have really good clients, they do listen to us. We might not get to be as crazy and do as much, but we can do something. But it's getting harder for us to do what we think is required, but we'll still help them as much as we can.
Do you think that the CEOs and the people in the executive suite are just as scared as people who are working at the company?
There's probably some, because I'm going to go back to, I think ageism-y stuff has something to do with it. When you ran successful companies for 20, 30, 40 years, and all of a sudden the game has completely changed and you liked your org chart and top down and you like what you majored in and it's gone, that whole thing of ego and power, you don't let go of it overnight. So yeah, there's some there that are like, I kind of like it the way it is. And I kind of like having power. In fact, I need the power right now because I've got a board talking to me or an equity firm talking to me. So their instinct is always to go to do what they've always done, which is, by the way, how you're wired. So yeah, there's some of that without a doubt, but I'd also say there's a part of it that's gonna, and this is where I spend a lot of time just keeping up with what the McKinseys, the Bains, and the BCGs are doing to make sure I'm not off my game in any way, is it's such a race. And I don't know if it's the right race to have. I don't know if you want to be first out or first in so you can beat China and beat globally, whatever you want to be. It's such a hurry. And people are like, well, if we don't hurry, we'll be out of business. Yep, that might be true. But you could also hurry and also be out of business because you moved too fast. People didn't go with you and you have 1,000 AI tools that don't talk to each other, and neither do people. So I think there's this race. I know it's a race. I live in it. I watch it in a lot of the clients that I have. And I would say, if people say to me, do you think you should be first out or fast follower? I'd probably say fast follower. I used to say that when in sales as well. Fast follower is better. But someone's going to go be a trillionaire in SpaceX tomorrow and not be a fast follower. But you're a corporation with, 5,000 people. I think you need to kind of see what's going on, try things, fail at some things, see what's working, see what's not. That's the advice I know Alicia and I kind of give to the CEOs and the C-suite people we work with today. But it's not slow down AI. It's really be looking at the intersection of AI and human collaboration and AI human networks because we all think humans have been the most important part of what's made companies successful. Are they not going to be part of it now because of agentic AI? I mean, we'll figure it out real time. It's real time practice. Or is it going to be humans are augmented by agents and now they're doing even better and the two of them are working together, or all of them are working together? And that's where my passion really is. And that's really where I'm focused today, is on the role of humans and networks in a world of agentic AI.
When you hear these dystopian stories of all humanity losing their jobs, do you believe them?
I would say it this way, going back through a lot of us who've been around long enough, from like before the internet and the dot-com bubble and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, people still have jobs now and more jobs than we had back then. This is different, I believe, in the sense of the ability for AI to do the job, like one AI agent to do the job of like 5 people. So how we're structured and how we work and how work happens, I do think will be different. But there's so much opportunity. I think I heard from my husband recently something like 80% of the jobs 5 years from now haven't even been created. 80%. But you've got to be curious. You've got to be willing to learn. You can't be like, oh my God, I majored in this 30 years ago and I have no energy to learn anything new. That's when I'm like, then you got to get out. So I think there's going to be plenty of fun opportunity to do stuff cool and different, but you got to reframe it and think, I can do this. And figure out what your passion is in how it's starting to work and grow, and what do you bring to the table. Most people should be fine, honestly. It'll just be a lot of different roles. A lot will disappear, but a lot of new ones will come out. But
this is my thinking. Number one, if no people are working and no people are making money, how are they going to buy the products that these companies are making? It just doesn't.
I know. I think you and I have talked about this before. I'm like, I always just want to sit with economists and be like, okay, most people don't have a job. How are they buying a $2,000 iPhone? So yeah, I kind of stay out of that piece over there. And I do still like to believe that, and again, I think I'm interested in universal income, and is that going to be needed at some point? Without a doubt, but that's not my expertise in any way. My expertise is to help. I work with a lot of young people today coming out of college too, that are having a tougher time getting a job right out of college and don't have networks, by the way, because that's still where most jobs come from. Like when we're older, we have networks and someone gives you a call, right? And so I focus more on that stuff, is like, what do you want to focus on? What are you passionate about? Keep learning about AI, how it's changing and what we do, and figure out how you want to jump into that. And we're here to help you. So that's where I put my energy. After that, I can't. I lose so much energy worrying about if people are unemployed and can't buy anything, but I don't know how to fix that.
Okay, let's push that aside.
Yeah.
But this other question, people who lose their jobs get counted when there's layoffs and Amazon lays off 15,000 people. It's in the newspaper. Amazon is laying off 15,000 people.
The stock goes up because of it.
Yeah, and of course there is the statement that we're doing this to invest in AI and just further production. But nobody ever, and there are no numbers for this, ever talks about the new jobs that get created. It's as if everybody is just focused on, you're losing what you had yesterday, but they're not saying what you will have tomorrow.
I don't think that many of them have been created yet. Like going back to my husband, who was at a global thing, came back and said to me, hey, they were saying 80% of the jobs haven't been created yet. So I think they're getting created in small bits, but with the companies I sit in that I watch, that are in the middle of change and trying to figure out how to manage it, and should org charts go left and right or sideways? It's like you're watching a lot of chaos and what am I trying to say? Experimentation, all good, but they don't have any idea, I would say, a year or two from now exactly what it will even look like. I think they're willing to play with it, but if they know that they can get more efficiency or more productivity and let go of a couple people, they're going to do it. It's corporate America. They're going to do it. But if people can be augmented by AI or by agents and you can deliver 5 times what you were delivering to a customer, well, then you're going to be the one that survives, and the one that can't is the one that goes out of business as a company. So I don't think there's a thing where it's like, look at all these new jobs yet. They should ideally be coming down the pike, which is why I say to folks, stay educated, keep seeing what's out there, keep doing certifications, do what you've got to do to stay on top of it. So when those opportunities do arise, you don't want to be the one who's just was like, I was waiting for someone to let me go and then go find another job. You got to own it. I got to go back to, it's like jump in the bobsled. Like, you're not going to die. Yeah, you could. You have to sign your life away that you could die in that thing. By the way, you do. You have to sign like 5 pieces of paper when you're on Lake Placid. But you didn't die. And you went off and you did it and you're feeling confident about yourself. So I still think it goes back to the same stuff it's always been. Have confidence in yourself. Be curious. It's a top 3 competency right now. Be curious. And a top 3 for leaders is be empathetic and compassionate because of the people you're managing, whether they're peers or below you. It is hard to move from where they are and where they want to go. It's probably not the change in the endpoint is the problem. It's the transition of helping them get from where they are or where they're stuck or where they're nervous or where they have to learn something new and maybe be embarrassed. That's what great leaders do today. They're empathetic and they're compassionate. And I'd like to say, if I look back to what Alicia and I built, and when we built it, it was always like us saying, you don't have to do this, just watch. And then it would be like, you want to, okay. Oh, you think you can do it? Let's go get people that can and it was kind of that. It was the compassion and empathy of someone's being nervous to go live life or to go do something different. That's what leadership needs today, which is why I think humans, not to say agents can't be managing things, but they're never going to be truly empathetic or ever empathetic. Honestly. I got to tell one story for 1 second. I spoke at a conference for Princeton last fall. And I wasn't up on a stage. They asked me to be in a room with a bunch of students from global, but hosted by Princeton, from around the globe. And then they would get like 30 minutes. There was like 20 experts in the room, and they would have like 30 minutes or 45 minutes with that person on a topic. They could ask any questions they want, and then they would go around. And it was just so funny because I think it was like the second round where someone said to me, because they had my background, and it was a really great question. And someone said, well, I know you're like an executive coach and you work with a lot of senior teams. Like, now that AI can be a coach, like, are you worried you're not going to have a job? And I said, I'm actually not. I said, my business partner, I talk about this all the time, is I was like, I think there's great things going on in AI coaching. And so I see the demos. I have people tell me about it. They're great. They don't really do what Alicia and I do. And they were like, well, what do you guys do? And I would try to explain the human element of what the two of us do. And then someone asked me the question and said, well, I mean, they're so good now that they're completely empathetic. And I was like, it was like a 21-year-old. And I said, they're not empathetic. They're not human. No, I watched the thing. They're very empathetic. I'm like, no. They're being trained to act empathetic. And then the rest were like, no, I think you're wrong. I'm like, I'm not wrong. They don't have brains. I'm like, they can't be empathetic. And they were like, so wait, so what do you mean they're doing when they're coaching? I'm like, they're pretending to be empathetic. And let me tell you, when you're someone on the other side of being coached by someone, it may be great to have a pretend robot feel pain for you. It actually isn't feeling any pain. It's pretending to feel pain. Or would you rather be with a human who actually is empathetic? And they were like, wow. I really thought they were totally like empathetic and passionate. I'm like, no, we're teaching them to pretend that they are. And they walked away and I said, what was your favorite part of the conversation? And they're like, I can't believe they're not empathetic. I'm like, oh no, this is like the younger generation coming up. And like, we know as adults, they're not, creative. They don't have critical thinking like that. Like, at least the 10 things we know AI doesn't have right now. Watching this younger generation trying to tell me how empathetic robot coaches are. And I was like, no, they're really good at pretending. And actually, they're pretty good at pretending. And that might be all someone needs to call a hotline. Right now, people are answering a hotline with mental health. It might be the next best thing is to pretend that you're empathetic and help somebody. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying it's pretend. So anyway, that's that story about humanity and the work we do today.
Well, it really does sound to me like this is a case of getting out the rebar, getting out the arrow, and just allowing people to see what they can do.
And to be surrounded by others. I think that's what's so important. As Alicia and I go back, because we've been together for 30 plus years now in like 5 different jobs. And then we decided just to go out on our own and only work with people that we love, as opposed to work with leaders that we just drain all our energy anymore. It's like, you still wish you could have, while you can do it online and you can be in back-to-back Zooms all day. We know there's research behind it. You're exhausted by 2:00. You don't really meet people as well anymore. People switch jobs more often because they don't feel super connected because they don't know them and they stare at videos all day. It's super important, we believe. And when we hang around with the think tank people that we love, that we've been around with for 30 years, and we try to be like, is this just because we're like old and we think it should be that way? Or is it making this circle where humanity matters, being with and around humans still matters, and doing those kinds of really great offsites or things we would do? That's when people really bonded. And it was having difficult conversations and challenging each other during the day and breaking bread at night with a good glass of wine and, something like that. But being able to say, let's go. I'm trying to think what else we did at the Olympics, because it was all corporate people. We would go to the dojo and we would do, stolen from HBR's article, of judo. That whole article is like, you can be super tiny, like a little startup, and take the enterprise out by flipping them over your head. So that's what we would go do. We'd go flip each other in the dojo and learn about, being able to win when you're the tiniest person, not the biggest. And that's where people would just feel so good when they walked out and make new friends, because we would mix people from different companies and then have a network that is better and then go celebrate at night. And so she and I just talk about it, and all our friends were like, I wish more companies, or at least more or people that put together conferences now. I think they'd be so ridiculously, if there's money to be had, there's not a lot of money. That's the thing, is, well, we don't have to, we can just do everything online. Well, you can, but it might not be the same thing. You might not get as far. Is if people could spend more time with each other. Everything we look back at is people meeting, laughing, trying things, breaking rebar, flipping people in judo things, going down slides, whatever you're doing. Sitting in a ballroom, when I talk to people, I'm hearing for the first time a lot of people mid-level, lower level to mid-level, they're burning out already. And that's where Alicia and I spent a lot of time asking, why? What's going on in there? And a lot of it are leaders who we coach that are like, I don't know how to coach people through what's going on here. So I'm like, leaders are being honest that they're struggling how to get people through. And then the lower levels, like, we have a lot of AI tools. They don't really work together. And, they just feel kind of lost and tired. And so that's why we kind of look at it and we're like, God, I wish, not even to make money, I would do it for free, for God's sakes. Like, I wish we could pull more people together and help them say, we can all get through this. We got to get through it together. Let's do it. How are we going to do it?
Get the rebar.
Well, that's what I mean. And when I looked it up, because I think you had asked me and Ben had asked too, and I'm like, I think Peggy's still around. Peggy Dillon, her name was. I mean, Alicia always say, I don't know where we'd be without like the Peggy Dillons of the world. Like, we just tried it. It could have been a disaster. We got a good boss who would have been like, well, that sucked, but it was still better than looking at PowerPoint slides for 2 days. But it wasn't. They were great. And then when we got to, when I was with Jeff at Amex, and it was like, what do you got? We're like, let's walk on fire. He's like, okay. And so we look now and think, those leaders have to still be out there somewhere. We didn't just get lucky. We found them in our lives. We're picky, but we just didn't get lucky. There's ones that are out there that if you just give them good ideas, that's what Alicia and I did, is, well, what if we don't sit in a ballroom? What if we did this? And the great ones would say, let's do it. And you know what? Worst case scenario, they get to meet each other. They have a lot of fun. And we don't see that as much anymore. And I just wish there were more conferences, at least, where people could depend on each other and learn from each other and have fun with each other. And
what you're saying just is telling me that somewhere along the line, humans started losing something.
I mean, I think it's associated in one way with technology, right? Because it was cool nobody wished COVID on anything, but what was great was Alicia and I had been saying to people for a decade, why can't you let them work remote more often? Well, we don't trust them. Like, well, then you need new people. This is a leadership problem. But there weren't great tools back then. And then what happened during COVID was you realize, hey, Zoom's pretty awesome. Pretty good. It's working pretty well. And then Teams. And so it allowed us to sit in our house all day, which like there was some good parts to that. And then you do it for a couple of years, you're waiting for your vaccine. You're like, I got to get out of my house, especially if you're remotely extroverted, not very introverted. And so you kind of watch it and you think so much of it was to make the world more efficient, to make it more, I can order my groceries out of my door. Do I like grocery shopping? No, but then I don't get out of my house anymore. And then you kind of look at it. And when I talk to younger people, the ones I'm talking to more late teens, 20s, there's a high level of loneliness, and you think, okay, yeah, did I like sitting in traffic going to work? No. But the majority of marriages came from being at work. And even good friends came from like that Thursday, who wants to go to happy hours? We had a great week, and you go with your friend, and then you meet your friend's friend, and then that becomes your friend or your boyfriend, and you think we'd go out together. We'd walk to Starbucks together. It was about humanity. It was about community. It was about naturally building networks. And now these poor younger people, when I talk to them, and I feel the same way sitting here sometimes, I'm like, I just got to go outside. And then I'm like, well, I got to Zoom in like 20 minutes. By the time I order salad, I'll just sit here. And so technology in one way has made our lives fantastic. It's also made us more lonely. It's made us more separated. People don't have the community they used to have. Like this last year, the number one word I've heard from everyone, whether I'm at work or out, is we need to go back to a world of community. And I'm like, why don't we? And they're like, because where do you start? You're in your house. You don't go to work as much. You don't go out anymore. You don't do, you have your little pod like you did sort of in COVID that wouldn't kill you, your little tiny pod that was safe. And that's why so many people are craving community. And I'm getting involved in those conversations in my own town. I live in Colorado, where I'm like, all right, let's start something. Like, what can we do? And how do we go about doing it? There's like little, meetups and little things, but it's not at that sort of energy level of like figuring out how we can help people thrive.
Yeah, it just speaks to the point that instead of just feeling like, oh, I can't move as fast as AI, it really is a matter of, if you get on the bobsled, if you put the arrow against your neck, you're just going to be thinking about it differently.
That's it. That's how we started. The first time we talked on this whole thing, and the more I started thinking about what you were trying to accomplish with the podcast, was it's really reframing, because you're trying to do your best to unwire how you're naturally wired. We're wired for fear. We're wired to survive. That's why we're still on this planet. But it also holds us back from a lot of things. And so if you can do a little rewiring there and realizing you'll be okay, and give people what they need to feel okay and feel safe, because that's what they want to feel. It's okay to push them out of that comfort zone a little bit. And when you do, boy, they're open-minded. It's just, you got to get them there. So yeah, I agree.
So that's the first step, the bobsled. Thanks, Courtney, for that lesson in reframing. And when it comes to reframing, it's hard to do it better than my sponsor, Moments. We've just talked about the fears that many have in the workplace. How about this for a reframe? The workplace providing employees who've done great jobs with bucket list trips they'll talk about for as long as they live. One of the wonderful parts of having a sponsor like Moments is interviewing the people who tell you how wonderful Moments is. You might think, what's not to like about having your company reward you with a trip to an exotic place somewhere in the world? But when you hear about the way the trip is assembled, when you hear winner after winner tell you it's hard to imagine another trip rising to that level, you begin to understand how special Moments is. Listen to Emma Cook, financial controller at Acceleration.
I mean, I truly felt like a celebrity, because it was like I just showed up to the airport and then the rest of the trip was taken care of. So it really was incredible. And they hit the nail on the head with exactly what I would be interested in. And it was even better than I could have imagined. Like, they truly blew it out of the park, to the point I actually booked the same trip for my parents because I said I want every detail exactly the same, the way that we were taken care of from start to finish, just every detail in between truly made you feel like you were some sort of celebrity. It was just amazing.
Little background. From the time she was a kid, Emma dreamed of going to see elephants. There was a good reason.
Fact that living in Bermuda, seeing an elephant would never happen because we're only 21 miles long. So even our zoo couldn't house an elephant. So I just always wanted to go and see elephants. They were just always so fascinating to me, I think because they really were on the other side of the world from where I grew up.
She won the Accelerator of the Year award at Acceleration, the parent company of Moments, for bridging data over to improve company decisions, while she was also getting her MBA and trying to find some sleep in between. She had always dreamed of going to Thailand. As she finished up her degree, the award gave her that chance.
When we stayed at the Anantara Elephant Resort, and that specific hotel was just unbelievable. That whole experience was once in a lifetime. What was incredible about that hotel was that for each night you stayed, you were able to pick an elephant experience. So we were there for 2 nights, and the first elephant experience we did was walking with giants. So our very first morning there, we woke up at about 8 a.m. And we're taken out into the fields of this resort. And it was incredible because at that hour, the mist is rising on the horizon. So you're waking up with like the sun slowly going up and slowly rising. And we then get to the little field where the elephants are. And essentially, you take them for their morning exercise. It was just my fiance and I, and then our tour guide who came with us. The second elephant experience we did was actually making food and feeding the elderly elephants. Because what we learned was elephants actually live for 80 years, which is incredible. But they eat for 20 hours a day. They only sleep for 4, which I had no idea. So they are just constantly consuming food. And so for the elderly elephants, we were able to make these rice balls for them with coconut and banana. And then actually feed them. The icing on the cake with this hotel was our very last night. We actually stayed in a jungle bubble. So they picked us up in the evening and took us down into their little jungle area of this resort. And there they have 2 blow-up circular bubbles that are set up with a king-size bed, a bar area, a bathroom, but it's completely see-through. And it's because you're able to observe the elephants right there. Because in the evenings, they return to this little area of the jungle and essentially spend the night there grazing, continuing to eat, continuing to play. And so we were able to observe them from this jungle bubble and sleep with them, essentially. And it was just amazing to like be laying in your bed and hear the faint sound of them munching or doing a little trumpet sound. I mean, it was amazing. I really couldn't sleep that night because all I wanted to do was watch the elephants. And what was really special about that was essentially it's your private stay, your private area, because you're out there by yourself in this jungle. And so the hotel will deliver dinner for you, so you get to spend as much time as you possibly can with the elephants. So they delivered this like 7-course dinner for us and had everything set up, again, personalized for us. And it really was just unbelievable. I mean, my expectations for this trip were nowhere near what actually happened because it was just incredible.
Granted, Emma works for the parent company of Moments, but every time I speak with a reward winner, it's the same. Incredible. Once in a lifetime. Amazing. I'm telling you, this isn't a commercial. It's reality.